So when he's talking about Gaza, Dave Smith is like pretty good, but when he's talking about anything else, his brain like falls out of his head. The stuff he says is so stupid. I don't know if he's like a Russian spy or some kind of Soviet asset. Like, I don't know how anyone could possibly be this misinformed and then have this other guy who's even dumber, like, sit there and nod along with him. I'm just going to play like 5 minutes of this podcast. I'll start it at a pretty interesting spot. I haven't listed all this, but he just sucks up to Putin so much. He doesn't understand any of this conflict. He doesn't understand any of Russiagate. He gets into all this fun stuff. But
the other thing that I got to say really struck me in seeing, because I was thinking about it as you're watching, they did. So after the 3-hour meeting, Trump and Putin had like a little press conference thing. Not too much was said, although there were a few things that were interesting. We could get into that a little bit. But one of the things that just really stood out to me was that I think, I could be wrong about this, someone could double check me, but I think this was the first time they were together since Helsinki, which must have been in 2018. And was it 17 or 18?
So if anyone doesn't remember, and I remember, I was so young, but I remember this. Like, this was a big thing, as it should have been, right? Fox News probably didn't cover it, but Trump said at Helsinki that he trusts Putin's intelligence, that there was no Russian interference in the 2016 election, which is a fact. It's corroborated by the entire Senate, which not only did that intelligence assessment, they also passed sanctions on the very people that they said beyond any reasonable doubt, like, as a matter of fact, did the intervention. Like 13 nationals, 3 entities outlined in Mueller's report. They all got sanctions passed by Republicans. Trump didn't veto it because he would have gotten overruled multiple times over. Like, it wouldn't have been close. This is already settled. This is already settled stuff, right? Tulsi Gabbard's stuff doesn't even say anything about Russian interference. It says Tulsi Gabbard's, her whole thing, very high level, if you're not familiar with it, her whole thing is making a big scandal out of the interdebate between the intelligence agencies of whether or not Putin's intent should have been labeled as high confidence or low confidence as to whether he favored Trump. Now, high and low confidence, now this is a legitimate debate. I think it should have been high confidence. Mike Roger of the NSA thought it was low confidence. I thought it was moderate confidence. Some of the CIA thought it was moderate confidence. I've looked at the evidence myself. I think it's high confidence. But this is intelligence standards, like talking just you and me, or just like talking to people like colloquially. This definitely happened. Putin definitely favored Trump. There's nothing more to it. And Putin in 2018 himself said he favored Trump. You don't even need the human intelligence, the signal intelligence that the FBI had, the CIA had. Like, you can just use the circumstantial data and put it together that, they compromised Republican emails, Republican information. They didn't release it. They compromised DNC information. They did release it. So, that's all you need to know. But there's much more to it when you make an intelligence assessment. But let's keep going.
I think it was 2018. And there's just, I don't know, it was kind of interesting to see the two of them together after all these years. Now, for people who don't remember, Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump did meet in Helsinki back in what I believe was 2018. And the huge controversy back then, Rob, right, was that Donald Trump said that he believed Vladimir Putin.
Helsinki, ironically, Finland, is now bordering Russia, and it's a NATO member. So this whole Russian propaganda about big scary NATO is going to invade, like, why do you not care about Finland then? You share many hundreds of miles of border with them, I believe. It might be over 1,000. I have to look that up. And then Sweden's just across the water, basically sharing your border, not literally. They're also NATO. So if they're looking to like decapacitate NATO's ability to invade, like using any of these countries as a launch pad, which is stupid to begin with because they're our allies, and if our interests align, we could use them to invade Russia anyways, but we don't want to do that anyways. Like, it's just so stupid. I don't believe people buy into this stuff. Like, the whole we're scared of NATO thing is a complete lie. It's completely made up by Russian propagandists. They're not scared. They know NATO's not going to do anything. Like, they know NATO. There's zero precedent for NATO doing something as stupid as invading Russia unprovoked. Like, come on.
Because all the questions were about him interfering in the 2016 election. And Vladimir Putin was like, I didn't interfere in the 2016 election. And then they asked Trump, they said, he's saying he didn't interfere in the election. Do you believe him? And he goes, I believe him. He tells me he wasn't involved in that. I believe him. And this is what the entire corporate media tried to spin as treason by Donald Trump, because he dared
It is treason. Because you just passed sanctions on the people that did this beyond a shadow of a doubt. We knew it was the Russians from like the day they did it. Like all the forensics people, they found out that the hacks were done by Russians. They found out that the GRU's front on social media, who pretended to be Romanian, was actually Russian. Right? They looked at all the metadata of the stuff that they posted. We know this for a fact. Like it's not controversial. All the people at WikiLeaks knew it too. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, are you in on this like CrowdStrike thing? Like that Ukraine hacked it? Because they were definitely hacked. So who hacked it? That wasn't Ukraine. Wasn't like CrowdStrike is pretty reputable. Like, well, I don't understand why people still say this stuff.
That he trusted Vladimir Putin over his own intelligence agencies. And it is, with all of the evidence that's come out since that time, and even the most...
Which Dave Smith has not looked at, because if he has, he wouldn't be saying this. But actually, if he looked at it, he'd probably say the same stuff, because I don't think he's intellectually honest. Like, no libertarian is intellectually honest. Like, you can't possibly be against Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. That's the libertarian ideology. Like, it cannot exist if you're actually thinking correctly. You happen to have some okay opinions, but they come from unhinged places. Like Dave Smith's overall high-level view of the war on terror is probably like correct, but all the conspiracy that he injects into that, all the intent that does not exist, like into the war on terror, like this was some kind of evil kind of plot behind the scenes to do something like super extravagant, like the whole 7 countries in 5 years. It's like, well, it was bad, but it wasn't that bad. And there was wide bipartisan support for those wars, by the way. So it's not like this was evil dictator, like just doing whatever kind of behind the scenes stuff he wants. This was about 9/11, but that's a whole different topic.
Recent stuff that Tulsi Gabbard's been releasing, it is something to think about the fact that like Donald Trump ran in 2016 on détente with Russia. He explicitly ran on getting along with Russia and not moving in this, more and more.
He ran on NATO's stupid. We should stop funding NATO. We shouldn't protect any NATO countries that don't build enough military infrastructure, even though they have the Article 5 protections. Of course he would be like, oh, no NATO for Ukraine because NATO is stupid anyways. Because he's an isolationist. He doesn't care about global alliances. He doesn't care that Russia invaded Ukraine. He doesn't care about any of that stuff.
Hostile direction. And then when he tried to do it in 2018, they all accused him of treason for this thing that we've now learned that they completely made up and planted and used.
Who's they and what was made up? Even Tulsi, like, I just, it breaks my brain. Was, because even Ben Shapiro, I'm convinced he's a knowing liar and he doesn't believe any of this stuff because he seems like a pretty smart person just the way he talks. Like, but when he had to cover this on a show, he was like, Russia still dramatically influenced the election. It's just he like injected the Tulsi Gabbard fantasy that Putin didn't want Trump to win, and he did so to like maintain credibility with his audience or something. Even though Tulsi's reports prove none of that, it's just all stupid. Like the only thing that they could provide was Putin's best buddy, like Putin's longtime confidant, was contacted by intelligence agencies, and he said, "Oh, Putin doesn't care who wins. Russia's gonna be fine anyways." Like that's what he said, and they try to use that as evidence that Putin didn't have a preference, even though he commands the IRA and the GRU. Russian military intelligence completely, and they obviously they obviously wanted to damage Hillary Clinton, and the human intelligence that we do have supporting that is much greater than the human intelligence we have defying that. Now you could say it should be moderate confidence, and then I say that's fine. But moderate confidence in intelligence is different than talking on a podcast. Talking on a podcast, there's no question that their intent was clear. Look at everything the IRA released. Look at the everything that GRU did. Name anything that benefited Democrats. You could like Colin Powell emails. Well, there's all of that's fake. All of that is easily explained, but no one does any research.
Just for this purpose. I mean, for a few purposes, but this was one of the major ones, to prevent the democratically elected president of the United States of America from enacting the policy that he ran on, that the American people supported, to enact his policy with regard to getting along with the biggest nuclear power in the history of the world. It's just that's a crazy story.
How? Like, what policy are you talking about? Are you talking about throwing U.S. intelligence under the bus? Is that his policy? Yeah.
Then see it all come to, at least they're in the same room, and at least there's talk of trying to end the bloodshed and trying to reach some type of deal. So I don't know, just thinking about a lot of those things, like all about Russiagate. And it really does, when you see how high the stakes are, it's like, it gives you a whole nother level of appreciation for how criminal Russiagate was. You know what I mean? Like it's very easy for us to always like.
I would sell my left arm to debate anyone on Russiagate. Like, I cannot stand it, but I love it as a topic because it's utterly useless in this current political climate. But it's very, very interesting, and I wish it was relevant. But unfortunately, it's not. Even if everything was true, it's just not relevant. But
stop at the level of the intelligence agencies tried to frame the duly elected president of the United States of America for treason. Because really, like, when you say that out loud, do you need to go further than that? Like, that seems to be enough. That seems to be more than enough for this to be like one of the greatest outrages in the history of the United States of America, right? But it's actually quite a bit worse than that.
It's like, oh no, John Brennan had the Steele dossier in an appendix on the ICA. That means he must have fabricated it because the Steele dossier isn't credible. It's like, it's in an appendix. It's not in the actual report, dummy. Like, all of your evidence for this is bad. You don't even lay it out because you don't know it.
Because it was actually intentionally being used to prevent Donald Trump from pursuing his policy agenda, which was to get along with the country with the biggest stockpile of nuclear weapons in the history of the world. And they intentionally thwarted that. And that has already resulted in a war where hundreds of thousands, perhaps well over 1 million people have died. So, like, it's just like, as you think about that,
the only thing that could have possibly prevented the invasion of Ukraine is if Biden capitulated to Putin's ultimatum that he made in December of 2021. And this ultimatum would have incapacitated NATO, incapacitated Article 5, which is active globally, incapacitate them to not operate in Central Asia, in Eastern Europe, in Ukraine, in the Caucasus, roll back all NATO infrastructure and activity to 1997 levels, which would exclude, I believe 15 NATO members, right? Who would be NATO in name only. Like, that's basically saying NATO doesn't exist. Like, Russia has jurisdiction over all of this. We can invade whoever we want, and NATO has to promise to not do anything. Like, it's seriously wild. Like, the ultimatum was NATO cannot do anything in Eastern Europe or Ukraine. What? That's basically saying NATO would not do anything about an invasion of Ukraine. If it was just we don't want Ukraine to have NATO next to their name, then you have an argument, but you don't, because that's not what Putin wanted. Putin isn't scared of NATO. You're too stupid to realize that. He doesn't care about NATO. He doesn't care about Finland. He doesn't care about Sweden. He doesn't care about missile deployments. He knows that the United States could destroy them in a few minutes. Like, we could send a missile over there in 30 minutes. It doesn't matter. We have missiles in Europe. We can send them from the United States. So you get there in half an hour. You'd be done. Ukraine is not that important to us. This is modern warfare. But we're not going to go to modern warfare because why would we?
really is. It gives you a whole new feeling. Even though, listen, I know the administration is already a failed administration. I know that they're probably not going to deliver on 10% of the good things that they promised, but like, and I know that they're pivoting away from the Epstein cover-up, but it does.
Oh yes, it's the only thing Dave Smith cares about. The only thing. The only thing that, unfortunately, a lot of stupid Democrats have bought into, like the Epstein stuff, which there's no evidence for. Which if there was evidence for, the Biden DOJ would have handled it. And you can't say Merrick Garland would look at like evidence to charge someone with serious crimes, charge Republicans with serious crimes, and pass that up. He wouldn't. He wouldn't do that unless there was serious blackmail that we cannot possibly comprehend, and because we can't comprehend it, we can't comment on it.
It did just leave me with another thing of like, man, those people who did Russiagate really need to pay. Like, they really do need to be held to account to that. It's just it's hard to.
He can't even qualify who those people are. If you can't even form the words John Brennan, James Comey, Mike Rogers, even though he was the one who dissented from John Brennan and did moderate confidence. Oh gosh.
Overstate what a profound crime that was.
Yeah, I guess I never really put that all together, that we could have been moving in a direction of getting along with Russia, which might have made it more difficult for Biden to, pull off the NATO's going into Ukraine and then provoking that war if we were in a better place. So,
what? NATO is going into? I guess, yeah. Pull off. That's not how the war started, but that's okay. You just have to start somewhere. Biden apparently pulled off the NATO's going into Ukraine, even though Ukraine wasn't going into NATO. They weren't going to get NATO anytime soon. Really, they should get NATO if they want it, and they do want it. 80% of Ukrainians want it. Probably 90% by now. I'm not up to date on this, but they have no idea what the draft treaty was, the ultimatum. Look at that. It's like basically saying, if China was like, if we were like, Russia, you have to destroy all your nuclear weapons. Like, that's the equivalent of what they asked. We would say, Russia, get rid of your nuclear stockpile. You're not in the NPT anymore. You cannot have these weapons. Or else. That's the equivalent. But, we have more of a credible threat here in the West. NATO is the dominant alliance. So we might have more success with that. But it's of equivalent stature. It's basically saying this alliance is no longer an alliance that operates globally. It's just a little circle jerk that happens in the West, and it can't do anything about anything. Get out of here.
Yeah, that is, I guess, an interesting storyline that lurked in the background there of, the war hawks are the people that are anti-Russia, kind of instigating that as far back as 8 years ago.
Who's not anti-Russia?
Oh yeah, and I mean, look, it had a huge effect on it because you so much. I mean, look, there's a lot. Like there were huge levels of escalation in the hostilities between the U.S. and Russia. I mean, we have a long history of having hostilities with Russia, but saying like post-Soviet Union, like Clinton had the first round of NATO expansion, and that was a huge deal. George W. Bush had the dual-use rockets put into Poland. That was a huge provocation. Like he got us out of a couple of different really important treaties. Like there were steps each way, but this disaster, like
Bill Clinton also got us into a couple really important treaties. Like, what do you mean got us out of? Bill Clinton got us into the he oversaw, or it happened under his presidency, the Russia-Ukraine Friendship Treaty, 1997. Then you have the Budapest Memorandums, 1994. That's Clinton's term. Yeah, that is. Nevertheless, like these are good things. I'm sure Dave Smith would agree with that. Partition of Black Sea Fleet, that's also something that happened. Like be specific. How did we be like super like yes, Clinton and George W. Bush were not afraid necessarily of confronting Putin or of confronting Russia. Sorry, they weren't afraid of expanding NATO. Even though H.W. Bush kind of put like the fake chip on the table that there was not going to be any expansion 1 inch eastward. Like, that was his thing to settle Germany, to reunify Germany, and that was fine. But all the presidents until Trump, Obama is a bit different because he was facing he was facing a bunch of other stuff, like other things that changed the game, like the invasion of Georgia, Crimea, and then like Euromaidan, everything happening in Ukraine. I mean, W. Bush had to deal with the Orange Revolution. Well, not deal with. That's just showing Ukraine's sovereign independence as like political thinkers, and they have the ability to change, who they support. And if they want to be a democracy, want to be more like the EU, then that's totally fine.